Howdy everyone, Keely T, Brooklyn Cat Shrink here, and this is my first Q&A video. Unfortunately, Emmett and Fiona will not be joining us today. I'm working in Park Slope. I'm a little bit pressed for time, so I promise next week's video will definitely have them live and kicking from the Bay Ridge office. So I really wanted to make this video today even without the cats, just because I had a lot of tweets and direct messages on Twitter about the Netflix series 13 Reasons Why, and I thought it was really important as a professional that I watch the show because I knew people would be bringing it in. And even before I finished the series, I would say a good 6 people brought it up in session. It was definitely a discussion, and I think bullying is something that has affected a lot of people, and I think it really did hit home for a lot of people. Overall, I did not like the series. I will say that I do love the 2 leads, Catherine Langford and Dylan Minnette. I think they are adorable. I think that they are talented, and I think that they will have good things coming their way in the future. But overall, I didn't like the series. I didn't like the writing. I didn't like the acting. I thought the show glorified suicide, which I wasn't happy about. And I didn't think it was a realistic portrayal of a suicide at all. I really felt it was inauthentic. I felt that yes, there were professionals that were consulted with, but I think they probably should have consulted with survivors of suicide and family members of people who were either victims of suicide or survivors of suicide. I think that there was a huge piece missing, and that was symptomatology. I think that there's a lot more that goes on than just the psychosocial piece. I think that, yes, there are definitely stressors, and Hannah Baker's character certainly had quite a bit of them, but I think it's much more than that that goes into suicide. I think that even people who didn't necessarily have those psychosocial stressors could be driven towards suicide for various reasons. If we look at depression, people have a lot of physical symptoms that go with it, feeling fatigued, always feeling tired, feeling irritable, just not feeling well. And imagine feeling that way day in and day out, and trying medications, trying different therapies, and nothing is working. I could understand why someone would become hopeless. I also did not like, just with regard to the psychosocial stuff in the show, the last tape, which is of the school counselor, there was victim blaming there. I think at one point he says something to the effect, I'm not quoting, just something to the effect of, do you think you could have consented and taken it back? And I mean, the reality is, even if you consent and take it back, you still took your consent back. I wouldn't have handled it that way myself. I think I would have just said to someone, well, I think he says something like, oh, I have to figure out whether or not I need to call the police. I would have just said, like, all right, walk me through what happened play by play, from the very beginning to the very end, and then we'll figure out what our next steps are. I would have handled it a bit differently. But then again, this is an actor, it's not a professional. The writers weren't mental health or school professionals. There was just a lot of things I did not like about the show. That being said, I'm not telling people to avoid it. I'm actually doing the opposite. I think that as bad as the show was, and please Netflix, please Selena Gomez, please just spare us all and do not make a season 2. I think that the show, however, did open up a great dialogue about suicide and sexual assault. And they're 2 topics that are very, very uncomfortable to speak about, but they're 2 topics that we need to be comfortable speaking about. We need to become comfortable speaking about these 2 topics because they are happening. They're happening all the time. And I do see enough young people to know, and I do see enough teachers to know, that bullying can happen right under anyone's nose in those schools, and no one would ever be the wiser. So it's really, really important that we have these conversations with young people. I think parents, yes, you should be concerned, but yes, you should be watching the show with your teenagers. You absolutely should be. You should be having a discussion, an open dialogue about it afterwards. We have to really take the stigma and the taboo away from talking about these topics, because if we don't, we're not going to get a lot of people the help that they need. And we're not going to have good information about it, and we're not going to have good research about it. So I think, again, as a professional, yes, whereas I don't love it, I think it was my responsibility to watch it. I'm not directing people to it. but I'm not directing people away from it either. I think, yes, if you do have, you know, certain traumatic events in your past, yes, it could be triggering, but at the same time, you're going to go through life and there are going to be many, many things that are triggering that you can't avoid, and you're going to have to learn to work through those things. So it might actually be a good thing in a way that you can talk about it with your loved ones, you can talk about it in therapy, and you can learn to deal with those triggers. But I think we need to really look, as bad as the show was, I think we really do need to take the opportunity to start opening up the dialogue about it. So that's my short and sweet commentary about it. I really, really do want to hear some comments and feedback. You guys can definitely email me in the cats. I'll put a link up underneath the video. It's emmettandfiona@gmail.com. The cats may or may not be the ones responding. No, I'm just kidding. I will be the one responding to these questions. Absolutely. My cats don't have opposable thumbs. But I really do want to hear some feedback. I think it is an important discussion that we all need to talk about. So until next time, Keela T, Brooklyn Cat Shrink. See you later.